Hello and welcome to the DB2 webcast series for Oracle professionals. My name is Serge Rielau and I'm the SQL architect for DB2 for Linux, Unix, and Windows out of the IBM Toronto lab. Over the past few years, my team has been working to make it easier for Oracle application to be enabled to DB2. And I thought what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a demo of moving a real application over to DB2 that was originally written for Oracle. Now, of course, it's not that easy to get a vendor with proprietary source code to relinquish his IP and let me demo this thing for life. But what I've been able to do is I have found an open source application from OpenBravo, which is one that you can get access to yourself and take a look at the code and see that it is definitely a non-trivial ERP application written for Oracle with packages and tables and routines and functions and all this good stuff. And we're going to move it over live right here in this demo. So the first thing to know when you're dealing with a DB2 and an Oracle application is that DB2 has to behave differently in order to ingest the specific behaviors that Oracle applications expect, for example, around empty strings and null, varchar2, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we have to do is to put DB2 into a special mode that teaches us to be more Oracle compliant, so to speak. So let's do that. So we stop DB2 first, and we set this Oracle mode, DB2 set, DB2 compatibility vector. We set it to ORA. Okay. And we fire up DB2 again. So now DB2 as the library is now in an Oracle compatible mode. The next thing we have to do is we have to create an empty database, which we're going to use and then fill in with all the metadata and all the schema from the OpenBravo application. So we create a database. We call it OB2 on DB2 file system. And we use a 32 kilobyte page size so we can handle wider tables. Okay, this is only going to take a few seconds. And once we have done that, there are a few more things that we have to do with this database. One of them is we have to teach it to be to handle the DDL in the same way that Oracle does. For example, when you're creating a procedure, you want to create this procedure even if there are dependent objects that might have been created out of order that don't exist yet. So we call this create procedures with error. That's the first thing I'm going to set for this database. And another thing I have to look at in a moment is the rounding modes. And Oracle numbers round at half up. DB2 actually has 6 different rounding modes you can choose from, and I have to make sure I pick the right rounding mode. So I'm going to do that next. OB2. Okay. DB2. Update dbconfig using auto-reval deferred force. This allows us to create objects based on other objects that don't yet exist. And then the next one is using decfloat rounding round half up. So these are these small little things that can bite you if you have small little differences. So it's pretty important to have these set properly. Okay. Terminate. The warning we get here is simply telling us that these changes, the running mode isn't going to be in effect until you have disconnected and reconnected. Okay, so now we have an empty canvas, so to speak, and we now want to move the Oracle application over to DB2. The Oracle application is sitting in an Oracle database, I mean the schema at least with the data, and we have a tool for that, the data movement tool, directory that we use to transfer not only the data but also the entire Oracle schema. Now, people who do this a lot, they actually use the command line version of this tool, but of course for a demo it's much more nice to go and use the GUI. It just shows better. Let me make sure I get this. Yeah, I get everything on here. There we go. And so you see now there's two panes, left and right. On the left side, we're going to make sure that we can actually connect to Oracle. This has been pre-filled out already with the URL and the password and everything to connect to Oracle. Let's make sure that we can actually connect to Oracle here. All right, this worked. And then we have to connect to DB2. That also worked. Okay. And now the next step is to go and extract the DDL and the data. I'm not going to actually do this here. I'm just going to, I would push at this button. Okay. And that's going to dump all the information out from the Oracle database. That's going to work without any error, but it's going to take a while. So I have pre-done this already, and I'm just going to now click on Deploy DDL data on the DB2 side. So once you have done this, you do this. Yep, that's the one we want. It's going to take a while here. And while this is going on, I can speak. It's going to be faster than the unloading, however. So the when you're doing this on something just as metadata, you can do it like this. You would take out the DDL and you take out the data together. If you're moving an application that has like many gigabytes or maybe even terabytes worth of data in it, what you normally do is you operate on a development system with very little data, or you operate on an empty database and you spend your time moving the application infrastructure over, and then the loading, the unloading and loading of the data is then done in a separate and later step. So that's typically how this works. So amongst the features that DB2 supports are things like PLSQL triggers, including multi-action triggers in FixSpec 4. We support PLSQL packages with routines, with types. We support arrays, array of rows even, and various other things like, for example, the date data type with date and time in it, the number data type using decimal floating point arithmetic, varchar2 where empty strings equals nulls, and a whole bunch of functions, Oracle outer join, and even the connect by recursion, and so on and so forth. We even support around 30 distinct dollar views, so that if you're used to operating against an Oracle database, you can more easily do this on DB2. Even from the shell point of view, we support a tool called CLP Plus, which is geared towards giving you the same look and feel as the SQL Plus that you're used to from Oracle, including the formatting and the local variables and so forth. Okay, so we have now loaded all the infrastructure of the database, which is basically the tables, the foreign keys, check constraints, and indexes, and so on and so forth. But we haven't loaded any of the abstract objects, so any of the views, for example, and the PLSQL object. So that's the next step we have to do now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go now back to the extract. We go onto the folder here, and we want to go and open this pieces here. There we go. So what we have now done is we have now loaded all the other objects here, and we are now going to deploy these. And we are just going to go on the Deploy All Objects button, and it's going to go through. The first part is going to be very quick because they have already been created. They're just validated now. It's a little green check marks. And as you see, it's just rolling through. So at the beginning, it's most of the tables, which we have already done in the script with the data. But later on, it's going to go into, now we see the other ones. So these are things like defaults, things like sequences, views, PLSQL packages, and so on and so forth. So for the tables, what we did here is we actually dumped them from the Oracle schema catalog, and then composed DB2 compatible create table statements and so on and so forth. But for things like views, functions, all the PLSQL, and the things that store SQL, we just apply them. So there is not a line of code that is being changed. It is deployed just the way as it is in Oracle. So all the time you find check marks, you find that DB2 was successful in deploying it. You will find the occasional the occasional X here, like little red things flying by, and that means that there was a problem in the deployment. Now, keep in mind that if you have a big object that has many lines of code, the likelihood for failure goes up. There is one failure here, right, going by, and what happens is that with about 98% of the of lines of code that we support today in DB2 9.7 Fixed-Spec 4 for most Oracle applications, we still find, of course, that just by the way how statistics works, that if you have thousands of lines of code, you get the occasional failure. That's what you have here. Okay, so we have seen everything. So most of the things have been deployed. The big thing here is that we assume everything works, and we then deal with the outliers. So this is one of the core premises here. We assume everything works and deal with the outliers. So, okay, Babel buffer pools, you don't need to worry about. Sequences worked all. The defaults worked fine. Now let's take a look at the functions, and let's see what we can fix. So where's the first failure there? It's only one function out of many that failed. That's good news. And this is the function number to text ES, whatever it does. I'm not even sure what it does. So one of the nice things about this is you don't have to understand the application too much. So now finding out exactly why it failed, we can either dig through this whole log here, or we can just be lazy and say just redeploy it, and we get ourselves the error message right there. So the SQL statement is not S. Maybe take a look at the details. It's not supported. So there is a statement on line 20 that is not supported. Okay. Let's take a look at the source code. Line 20 is here, and that is a type statement. So what we're doing here is we're defining a local type. Local types are not supported in DB2 9.7. We're working on that for future release, but right now, no local types. The fix in this case is fairly simple. We just have to go and move this type definition up into either a package, a PLSQL package, and we can preserve the Oracle syntax, or we bring it all the way up to become a global type, and let's do that. That's, in this case, easier, and we don't have to create a separate package for that. So I just uncomment this here, and then we're going to create a global type, DB2 connect to OB2, DB2 create type, Bravo user, we need a schema, array name as varchar 220 array 9 DB2 terminate. Okay, so we have now created this global type, and we should now be able to deploy this object. So the global type is now used inside of this procedure instead of the local type which we commented out, and yes, that worked. Let's see if we find another one. We can go down here. So this was the views. The views were harmless. Not much happening there. Triggers. Triggers went through without lots of triggers here. None of them caused any problems. Let's see if any of them are, well, some of them are. They're not that trivial. Not huge, not, oh, there is something. Not here. Okay. And, okay, let's take a look here. Maybe we take a look at this guy here, AD table import. Okay, what's wrong with this guy? Again, let's just deploy it. And that is the length and precision of something. Get a detailed error message. Varchar 32767. The length is too long, and that's correct. In DB2, the limitation is 32,672. So we are about 95 or so bytes lower than the maximum for Oracle. That I would not expect to be a major deal. We can probably just go and change it, because obviously this is not a domain that was chosen by the DBA very carefully. He just went for the maximum. So unless it's line 59. There we go. So what we can do is we can change it from the maximum of Oracle to the maximum of DB2. Not that there is a big difference here. Okay. Deploy. Deploy selected. That worked. Let's try to do one more, and then we're going to do a bit of a roll forward, just like in a cooking show. And you also don't wait for the thing to be in the oven. Let's go a bit more to the end here. Let's try this one here, which I think is the very last one. What's wrong with this guy here? (119) an expression starting with, let's see, 54. An update statement, that looks okay, that looks okay, and exists select star from group by, that's an odd one. So assuming that this table has more than 2 columns, the select star here, DB2 would want to either have sum for all the colors or all columns or some column functions, or only have the group by columns. I'm not sure why Oracle supports the select star here. Now, it doesn't really matter what we return here because it just doesn't exist. We could probably do 1 or something, but we can just do also use a group by column here that will do. So sometimes there are small changes within the SQL where the products behave differently. There are few of them, but they do exist. But most of the times they're really fixes that are as simple. There you go. This one is deployed now as well. So, and we would just go through. There's obviously a few more here that still need to be done here. So, but there are, I don't know, maybe 20 or nothing up here. So not that much. So this would probably take maybe another hour or two, depending on how much you know about Oracle and DB2, how quickly you get them. It's a question of experience. So what we will do now is, in the interest of time here, and not to just keep repeating the same work over and over, I'm going to quit this here. I'm going to just roll forward in time, again, just like in a cooking show. And I'm just going to restore DB2 to a point where I have already done all these other 20 changes here, which were in the similar level of complexity. Okay, overwrite the existing database, that's fine. Okay, and while we're waiting for this to happen, we can go and type. So after we have fixed the server, we have to take a look now at the client, at the application. So in the application, we need to do is we need to go and change 2 files. One of them is the XMM pool, and the other one is dbcon5. So let's see. We need to go to cd opt Tomcat web apps open Bravo. So this is where the application basically hooks into the Apache, into Tomcat. Okay. Gedit XML pool XML. So it'll take a moment to come up. So what we have to do here is we have to change the driver, of course, from the Oracle driver to the DB2 driver, and also the connection information has to be going from the Oracle connection information to the DB2 connection information. So it's a pretty trivial change. We don't actually have to go into the application itself. So there's the Oracle JDBC Oracle driver. Well, so Oracle driver needs to be replaced with DB2, and for some reason we call ours slightly different as well. So ours is called com.ibm.db2 .jcc .db2 driver, com.ibm.db2.jcc .db2 driver, okay. And the connection document also looks different. It's jdbc.db2 colon localhost port number 50,001, and the database is OB2. Okay, so that should take care of this guy. Let's make sure JDBC DB2 localhost 50,001 OB2. Okay, let's save this, and then we open one more guy, which is the dbcon5 document. dbconf5, open, here's the driver again. So it's com.ibm.db2.jcc.db2 driver. And we need to wipe out all this stuff here. And that turns into jdbc : db2. Oops, one colon only. db2 : localhost 50001 OB2, and then once connection information here, the user is Bravo user, password equals password. Okay, that should do the job. And we have done that. Now we have to make sure that the driver is actually accessible to Tomcat. So we have to copy that over. Copy. Opt. IBM. DB2. Version 9.7. This is a source directory where the DB2 JCC driver is. cc.jar goes to opt Tomcat web apps open Bravo web inf lib. Okay, that's one. You can see if I have some typing here. We have to copy the license as well. db2 jcc license cu.jar. Done. Okay, so now we have set up all the drivers. Now we have to do is we have to grant the user data access. db2 connect to OB2. db2 grant data access on database to user, Bravo user. Okay, db2 terminate. All right, so now all we have to do is, in theory, is to bring up the web server, and then we should be good. Bring up the web server, opt Tomcat bean startup.shell. Okay. And, well, in theory, it should be working. We should be able to now test the application. So let's go to Firefox. Okay, I already have OpenBravo bookmarked. And let's cross our fingers that I didn't have a typo somewhere, which of course is entirely within the range of the possible. For some reason it always likes to do this. There we go, connecting to OpenBravo. So now I can't really give a big tour here, but we can at least make sure that the application directory is there and we get some tables and columns here. And there we go. All the tables are there. Rest assured, you can believe me, or you can double check it and try this yourself. So that would be my live demo of moving the OpenBravo application written against Oracle over to DB2 in, well, just about half an hour, where I did a couple of shortcuts, so it probably would have been about maybe an hour or two longer to fix the remaining issues if I had done them live. So with that, I think I can go and give some closing remarks, and then I thank you for you to join us for this webcast series for Oracle professionals. So upcoming topics are listed on this slide here. So some interesting stuff about SAP, and also issues around an introduction to DB2 PureScale, which is probably very interesting to you if you are using Oracle RAC today, for example. DB2 PureScale is, what I like to say, is Oracle RAC but working. And on the next slide, just a thank you. So with a few resources that you can look into to have more information about DB2 that are relevant for Oracle professionals. And finally, please be free to feel free to contact us, IBM, or me in particular, if you have any questions about Oracle compatibility. I am the lead architect for that project. So if I don't know it, that's either a problem or I know one of my developers who does, and we can certainly answer all your questions. With that, I thank you very much and hope you have a nice day.